in person. We are dedicating the month of July to the topic of freedom. And so I would like to invite you to please close your outer eyes as we come into a prayer and get centered to go forward with today's wonderful, blessed activities and lessons. So as we breathe in and breathe out, we envision inside our eyes, inside our heart, inside our mind, a beautiful world with freedom that works for all. A world that's kind. A world that listens. A world that feeds and nurtures and plays. A world that loves. And so I welcome you here today into this holy place, into this sanctuary that is built on love, that is built on divine principles, that recognizes spiritual laws that say, as within, so without. And I thank you. I thank you for your energy and your support, and for your willingness to say yes. Yes. Use me, beloved Spirit. Use my hands, use my heart, use my mind. Use me from the inside out, and let me be that instrument, that divine instrument that creates a world that works for all. And so it is. Amen. All right. So, as always, I like to start with a little funny. And this is one of my favorites. And I hope that in light of some of the disasters, natural disasters that have occurred, and we lend our hearts and our prayers and our minds to those people that have suffered in that way, this does not appear tone deaf because I created this talk beforehand. But this tells us that God does nothing for us. God only works through us. It is that co-creative, collaborative spirit. And so here we have Bob. And Bob, not this Bob, no. And Bob found himself in an area of torrential rainfall and rising floodwaters. And the rescue emergency workers drove by and said, "You have to go. We're evacuating this area." And he said, "I have been faithful to God my entire life, and God will save me." Well, the floodwaters rise, and now the emergency workers come by boat. And they say, "Bob, get in the boat. The waters are continuing to rise. You're in danger." And he says, "Nope, I am praying, and I know that God will come to my rescue because I have been a good and faithful servant, and God will not let anything happen to me." Well, the waters continue to rise. Before you know it, he's on the tippy top of his roof. And there's a helicopter with one of those rope ladders. And they say, "Bob, get the rope, climb on in." And he says, "No, I have faith in God. I have been praying, and I'm going to be just fine." And so, unfortunately, he drowns. So he goes up to the pearly gates. He's a little bit unhappy. And he says, "God, I've been faithful to you my entire life. I prayed. I did everything you asked me to do. And how could you let this happen to me? And God says, I sent the emergency workers to warn you. I sent a boat. I sent a helicopter. What more could I have done? So the moral of this little story is nothing from without comes and saves our hiney. We are co-creators with Spirit. We listen to that inner voice, and that inner voice sometimes is echoed by someone else that says something like how Maggie read the Daily Word and someone said, I needed that. You know, we have a fellow traveler that somehow is there at the right time, at the right place to say something that we need to hear. But then we have to act. We talked last week about freedom from discord based on Reverend David Alexander's book. And just for those of you that maybe weren't here or didn't see it on YouTube, just to review, it is about finding balance, finding peace, and finding our inner voice. Freedom from discord is not living a charmed utopian life. It's understanding that when things happen, we react from love. We react from equality, not just my way or your way, but what can we work out? And then we have the courage to enter the storm while being that peace in the middle of the storm. We also discussed the roots of New Thought. Unity is one of the New Thought. I don't want to call it a religion. It is a way of life. It's practical Christianity. It is a spiritual approach to living. And our roots are based on Neoplatonism, which was liberation or awakening to divine unity beyond worldly divisions. These are our roots. These are our teachers. Transcendentalism in the 19th century. Conscience or an Emersonian inner authority as a moral compass and righteous protest. The Transcendentalists were very concerned with not paying taxes for things that, if you remember Thoreau, not paying taxes for things that they didn't feel was right. They were pro the suffragists, the vote for women. They were abolitionists. Those are our roots. Emma Curtis Hopkins, she was the teacher of teachers. She taught the Fillmores. She taught Ernest Holmes. She taught the founders of divine science. And she was one of the first to ordain women ministers. She gave women that right because Spirit doesn't know gender. It just simply expresses through each and every single one of us. And the Fillmores, they taught about healing and inner wholeness as a pathway to inclusive community, social outreach. Remember, Myrtle, I am a child of God. I do not inherit disease. And then coming forward into our contemporaries, Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith speaking about awakening, Louise Hayes speaking about the meaning of different diseases and the affirmations and the circumstances that, if reversed, can bring about healing. So now we have come to the flowering moment of all of that history. And it is up to us recognizing this to apply it in our lives. But we do it ourselves. I have this book, Nonviolent Communication. Violent communication is something that simply hurts somebody else's feeling. And Dr. Rosenberg, he has gone into war areas in Serbia and Sudan. He has negotiated with companies that were at odds over mergers. He's gone into schools, education, prisons, teaching nonviolent communication, which is how can we communicate to one another in a way that we are true to ourselves and we stand in our authentic glory without throwing shade at somebody else's authentic glory. How can we do that? And he writes, at the core of all anger is a need that is not being fulfilled. And so next time someone is angry or is wearing an angry message on their t-shirt, or is saying something, how would you shift if you thought, I wonder what inner need in this person is not being fulfilled? And if you approach the conversation from tell me more, trying to understand, as opposed to, how could you even talk that way? How could you wear that on your t-shirt? What is wrong with you? Because all that does is it enhances the antagonism. There are 4 principles in his book that he talks about. One is you observe something, but you describe to yourself what is happening without any judgment. Saying what is really going on here, and we don't give it a label of good or bad. We identify and express our emotions clearly. It is about us. It's not you make me feel da-da-da. I feel da-da-da. Or tell me how you feel. You recognize the universal human needs behind all feelings. That is so important. We all have so many feelings, so many things are going on in the world today, in our lives. The world is getting more and more complex. More and more information is coming at us. My husband and I have this kind of a standing joke that when we get to this point in our lives or with each other, we just go, ah! And we all have those moments, right? Whether in traffic, at the store, during the news, a neighbor. So, you have to recognize it. And for us, when we do that now, it diffuses everything and it's funny. But it's a wonderful way of communicating how we're really feeling without blaming another person. And when we make a request of someone, we make it specifically and actionable. We don't make a demand, but we say, what I would like from you next time is if you could please, whatever that is. And so, that sounds so different than what you just did upset me, and you did this and this and this, and you completely disregard my needs, and I want you to change. Can you see the difference between these two things? And in our relationships, when we get wound up, we tend to go the second route, right? And that's not good for us, and it's not going to accomplish anything, and it's not going to help the other person. Rosenberg writes, all violence is the result of people tricking themselves into believing that their pain derives from other people and that consequently those people deserve to be punished. And going through this book, I found this it got me right here. This is really what is going on. And so how do we respond? Do we respond in like kind? Do we ignore people like that? Or do we invite them to share their pain with compassion? And I know this can be very difficult. And it's difficult for me, it's difficult for all of us. But understanding that, doesn't that bring about a shift in how we look at things and how we deal with other people and how it changes our opinions about people that might be different from us, okay? In the book, Freedom from Discord, Reverend David Alexander writes on evolving into a liberation theology. He believes, as I said in the beginning, that New Thought was created to be a liberation theology. And we have moved, and we discussed this the last time, more into an Om, I'm happy, hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil theology. And if we can just maintain this bubble of belief, things will work themselves out. And maybe sometimes they do, but most times they don't, because remember Bob that was waiting to. So it is up to us. And he writes, we must move from the comfort of personal transformation to the courage of collective liberation. Our principles are not passive. They are revolutionary. And while this book has many political components in it, and I am not here to tell anyone how to believe and how to act, if we think that our theology was created to help people be free, to create an even playing field, to bring compassion into the world, to share, then we have to do more than keep that in our minds right here. We have to take some steps. On reckoning with history, he says, to heal, we must tell the truth. New thought cannot transcend what it refuses to acknowledge. And there are so many things in our history, and we have Reverend Liana next Sunday, and then we move away from the topic of freedom, so not all talks are going to be this difficult. But we have to acknowledge our history. You know, it is really important. I used to live in Los Angeles, and I used to go to Mammoth Lakes, California, which is a ski resort. In fact, that's where I met my husband. And on the way up there on Highway 395, there was Manzanar, which was a Japanese internment camp during World War II. And I oftentimes stopped. It's in ruins, but you can see enough of it. And it has plaques explaining and old photos and some, of children and their toys there. And there was a moment when we thought, how could we do these things as a country? And yet, it would appear that similar things are being done. And if not here, then in the world. And so we have to look back at what we have done, not with shame or blame or guilt. In most of those instances, some of us were not even on the planet, but with love and compassion, and recognize that we are today's light that can reverse that through our consciousness and through love. And on engaging the world through practice, he writes, affirmations without action are spiritual sedation. We are here to embody love, but not escape. And so, again, the idea that whatever we think is true, it can be true for us, but can it be true for the world if we don't take action? I don't think so. It might be we could become legends in our own minds. We could become legends in our own household. But if we talk about the world that works for everyone, we have to move, outside of simply affirmations and denials and actions. So you folks know, many of you know that I'm a real estate broker. I am a real estate broker in Nevada and in Arizona. And I am doing my continuing education, which we have to do every 2 years. And in between preparing my talk and my newsletter, I was doing a course on fair housing. And I was in the spiritual mindset of this talk when I started to digress from working on my presentation and go study for my exam on fair housing. This was approximately a little more than 50 years ago. And look at how people acted then. Now today we would think that this is horrible. How could anybody do such a thing? But yet similar things do go on. And I thought to myself, well, what would I want people to do what would I want to be the one that does to make things differently? I don't want anybody to walk out of here or for myself to take an act that could be harmful to us, that there could be some sort of retribution or retaliation. What is it that I really want to say? And so then, as there's always someone, a little angel, to come and tell you something that you need to hear, I had ice cream with beloved Maggie. And they have great ice cream at the general store in the corner. And she lent me this little book, How to Pray Without Talking to God. And it says, we are the answers to our prayers, a calling upon ourselves to realize what we are to be in a certain circumstance. And the author talks about her daughter, Alicia. And her daughter, Alicia, is a school teacher. And she calls her mother, and she has just watched something on the news where an innocent bystander, older person, got beaten up wrongfully, and they had to be, hospitalized. It was a horrible thing. And she said, it shocked my consciousness, but I don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. It called for me to say, what would I do? And I really don't know. And of course, when I was studying for my fair housing exam, which I passed, I had the same thought. What would I do? What would I tell people to do? So the next day, the author gets another call from her daughter, Alicia. And her daughter, Alicia, is a school teacher, and she takes the train to a bus stop, then she takes the bus to go to school. And as she was waiting for the bus, it was in front of a middle school. So she saw a larger kid and his little cohorts pick on a little kid and start to bully him and to hit him. So she went up to the big kid and grabbed him by the shoulder and looked at him in the eyes and said, I call it my mommy voice, said in her mommy voice, what are you doing? Stop it. And instantly, the big bully's eyes just went down, and he just got meek and humble, and they left the little kid alone. And she called her mother, and she said, Mom, I know what I would do. And she was elated. And so I want to caution you that when we ask these questions, the Lord knows what kind of an answer we get and then what we're called to do. So be very careful asking, what would I do? But I think most of us, when push comes to shove, we're there for the underdog. We don't want to see an individual get hurt or harmed. And we have to speak up. And when we speak up, just like in David and Goliath, we have the strength. It comes from within because we are, each and every single one of us, a manifestation of spirit. So we hear and read about mothers being able to lift a car off of a child. Where does that power come from? When before she had to get her husband to open the jar in the kitchen. It just happens. It just happens. And so trust that these things will happen to support you and to guide your actions so that you're always safe and you make somebody else safe along with you. So, in closing, what do we do to stay out of harm's way but speak truth to power and make sure that we are free from discord? Because we can't change the world. We align with spiritual principle. We avoid cognitive dissonance. That's like a big, multi-dollar word there. But cognitive dissonance is when, I'll give you an example. I don't have a lot of money, and I want to think of myself as wealthy. So I'm going to go on a shopping spree to feel wealthy. But I'm going to get in even more financial trouble for doing so. Cognitive dissonance is when we have opposing thoughts. Spirit always says yes, and we find ourselves in the bind. We need to ask ourselves, if I really, really want this, can I have this at the same time? What happens if I get two at the same time? Like, where will I live? Will I live here? Will I live in Shola? What will happen? You have to have a total picture of how these things work for you. Sometimes we're responsible for our own difficulties because we didn't think things through all the way. We have to stand for the good. Stand in the eye of the storm. Be the peace in the eye of the storm, because that's where freedom from discord lives. Practice nonviolent communication. Think about what you say and how you say it. Is it going to heal? Is it going to allow you to be heard? And are you going to ask for something in particular rather than put down another person? No spiritual bypassing. What is spiritual bypassing? Is when we have a problem that we just deny. God will fix it. Our initial cartoon about Bob, I would say that was a form of spiritual bypass. He is not in the moment seeing what's going on, and he is just thinking that it'll somehow resolve itself by itself. And take the path less traveled. We are here by divine appointment. We talk about being the light of the world. I don't know how many churches on the Sunday are filled with people that are willing to take emotional inventory, are concerned about communicating with others in a way that they can be heard without creating divide. We really need to recognize that there's not that many of us, so give yourselves the credit for wanting to grow and be better. For all of us, it's difficult. It is a stretch. It is uncomfortable, but it is the road less traveled, and it is where all of the rewards are. So I don't know if you can see it up there, my three musketeers, all for one and one for all. I just challenge you to live that motto. Live that motto in your family, in your community, in the world, in traffic, wherever you are. Because we need to stop looking at the vision and recognizing the oneness, even if it means that we have to stretch a little bit to understand what pain lies behind the appearance of division. And so this is my last slide. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. That's the only thing that is easy and is free and will not get you into any kind of trouble or put you in harm's way. So if nothing else, always be kind. Thank you.